Yesterday was the 22nd anniversary of 9/11, and I was tempted to do a segment on this yesterday, but I thought, let me see what people say about 9/11 all these 22 years later. Let me see what the memory of 9/11 is like now and respond to that. So we'll start with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden said, "I was there. It was like looking through the gates of hell." Except he wasn't there. He wasn't in New York. He was in Washington, D.C. He, in fact, apparently gave a speech on that day in D.C. So this is very typical Biden. He turns out that he claims to be at all these important historical events, and he was there at the civil rights movement. He was alongside Martin Luther King, except he wasn't. So this is a guy who sort of imaginatively visits places and events and gives firsthand accounts that he is no position to really give. In fact, this is Biden, and people are now accustomed to this, and this is what we have as the leader of our country. Now, when 9/11 happened, it occurred as a complete shock. And it was a shock not simply because it was an unprecedented attack, something like this hadn't happened before, even Pearl Harbor, which was obviously a massive attack by the Japanese, but that was not on the American mainland. That was off the shores of Hawaii. So it was unprecedented in that sense, but I think it was unprecedented in a bigger sense, and that is that after the end of the Cold War, America went into a kind of lull. And you remember people talking about the fact that it's the end of history. I mean, think of what a startling and broad claim that is. Sort of like all wars are now over. The ideological struggle over the best type of government is now over. Liberal democracy has won the day. This was, of course, the political scientist Francis Fukuyama, but many other people echoed similar sentiments. And what this meant is that the arrival of a kind of new ideology on the scene, and in this case, of course, Islamic radicalism, which wasn't new in the sense that it was invented at 9/11. It was actually cooked up 80 or 60 years before the formation of the Muslim Brotherhood, the ascent of the Khomeini regime in 1979. So Islamic radicalism had been cooking for a while. It then took a hold of a major state, Iran. You had powerful radical movements in other places, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Egypt, Afghanistan, and so on. And so all of this was brewing, but we didn't really pay attention to it. Part of it was we were focused on the Soviet threat, but even after the Soviet threat, there was a kind of atmosphere of Clintonian negligence. And this negligence is very culpable. And I think one of the remarkable things is how little Bill Clinton here, not Hillary, was held to account for it. Because think about it, the radical Muslims were sort of rehearsing 9/11, and by rehearsing here, I mean launching attacks as if to test the resolve of the Clinton administration. You might remember Khobar Towers, I believe 1995, the attack on the 2 U.S. embassies, the attack on the USS Cole. I mean, a massive attack. They blew a giant hole in the hull of a U.S. ship, and yet no response from Clinton. Nothing. And so the Islamic radicals were like, wow, this is the perfect kind of opponent. This is like a guy who's bigger than you, but you walk up to him and like punch him in the stomach and he doesn't do anything. And then you punch him in the back and he doesn't do anything. So you go, wow, why don't I aim a shot at his head? Because clearly this guy's useless. He's kind of large but inert. And I think all of this led to 9/11. Now, after 9/11, the U.S. crippled Al-Qaeda by striking out at Al-Qaeda facilities. Also, the U.S. scattered the Taliban. But look, what happens is two things. One is the Taliban just waited it out. They hung out in the mountains for 20 years. I mean, these are very hardened people. And now they're back. They're running Afghanistan. Who's in charge? The Taliban. And Al-Qaeda, I think, is not quite what it used to be, but Al-Qaeda now morphs. You get new groups coming up. You have ISIS, for example. And then you have to contend with ISIS. ISIS displaces Al-Qaeda. Now, ISIS itself suffered some blows under Trump. But again, I'm sure ISIS is now trying to make a comeback under Biden. Islamic radicalism is not gone. It comes, by the way, both in the Shia and Sunni strains of Islam. And so you think about groups like ISIS or Al-Qaeda, they are Sunni. You think about the Iranian mullahs, they are Shia. And so you shouldn't think of Islamic radicalism as coming out of one or the other. It actually comes out of both. And Iran is very much with us. In fact, Iran is, I think, the sort of central hub, if you will, of Islamic radicalism, because it's the one place where the Islamic radicals are in control of a major state. Now, the Taliban is in control of a state, but it's not a major state. It's Afghanistan. And Iran is not only important in itself, but it's linked now to Russia. It's linked to China. So this kind of new axis of evil is moving all over the world. It's moving in Venezuela. The Chinese, the Iranians, the Russians are all in Venezuela. It's trying to create, if you will, a rival axis to the United States. And so as we look back on 9/11, we were negligent in allowing it to happen. We allowed it to happen and we dealt with some of the immediate effects of it. But the longer term effects of Islamic radicalism are regrettably still with us to this day. Vladimir Putin calls the US dollar's drop in dominance, quote, objective and irreversible as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa formally agree to use local currencies in trade instead of the US dollar. It's the first shoe to fall. Now, as demand for the dollar weakens, the buying power of the dollar weakens also. This is why Birch Gold Group is busier than ever. Investors and savers are looking to harness the power of physical gold held in a tax-sheltered IRA. Debbie and I buy gold from Birch Gold. We trust Birch Gold to help us diversify and protect our savings. If you text Dinesh to 989898, you'll get a free information kit on gold with thousands of happy customers, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews. You can count on Birch Gold to help you navigate transitioning an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. As the US dollar continues to receive pressure from foreign currencies, from digital currency, and from central banks, arm yourself with information on how to protect your savings. Text Dinesh to 989898 to claim your free information kit now.